came home on a Tuesday. 9 days after my surgery, cane in hand, Uber pulling up to a house that looked like mine from the street but had someone else's curtains in the window. Cream linen, heavy, where my dark gray panels had been for 6 years. I paid the driver. I stood on my own path and looked at my house the way you look at something you own when someone else has been inside it long enough to leave their shape on it. When the proportions are the same, but something underneath them has shifted, the way a room feels different after someone has slept in it for a week. The front door opened before I reached it. My mother-in-law Diane in an apron I didn't own, dish towel in hand, warm smile already deployed. The specific warmth of a woman who has arranged things exactly the way she wants them and is waiting for you to understand that this is a gift. Behind her, my living room, reorganized, her photographs on my shelves, an oatmeal throw on my couch, my husband Daniel in the background, hands in pockets, wearing the face he wore when he'd agreed to something and was starting to understand the cost. "Surprise," Diane said. "We wanted everything perfect for you." I walked past both of them, sat at my kitchen table, moved 18 inches to the left, and texted my attorney 2 words. "She's here." I had been ready for this since January. Diane is 64, twice divorced. She raised Daniel alone from age 12 after his father packed 2 bags on a Wednesday and didn't look back. She did it on a teacher's salary, without bitterness, without the corrosive resentment that might have been understandable, and Daniel became a good man because of her. I have never questioned that. What I questioned, quietly, for 8 years, with the methodical patience of someone who spent 11 years in contracts, was what she believed that work entitled her to. She had opinions about everything: our decor, our diet, our decision not to have children, which she called their choice for now, until I asked her, precisely and directly, in year 4, to stop. She called Daniel every morning at 8:15, a pattern so established that our coffee routine was structured around it the way a river is structured around a rock. She referred to my house as the house in a way that was grammatically ambiguous about whose. She showed up unannounced in years 2 and 3 until I made clear that this required a conversation I was prepared to have, at which point the unannounced visits stopped and were replaced by announced ones framed as questions that expected yes for an answer. I filed it all, not obsessively, but the habit of attending to language, of noticing what a clause gives versus what it appears to give, of reading the sentence that seems routine and finding the one underneath it that is not. That habit does not stay at the office. Over 8 years, I had concluded that Diane was running a long-term negotiation with a single objective: maximum access to Daniel. The method was patience and the appearance of help. She was not malicious. She was strategic in the way people are strategic when they've organized their entire emotional world around one person and feel that world contracting. You can understand the psychology and still need to address the behavior. These are not contradictory positions. I had managed this the way you manage a river, not by stopping it, but by maintaining the banks. Until November, until my surgery, until she found a window I hadn't fully closed and moved through it while I was sedated 2 miles away. The hysterectomy was scheduled and necessary. My gynecologist said it was not something I should continue to delay, and she said it in the direct way I had always appreciated in her. I arranged everything with the thoroughness I apply to all logistics. Colleague covering clients, dog sitter confirmed for our beagle Henry, recovery suite booked, specific supply list filled and organized by the bathroom sink. 3 weeks of reduced activity mapped against my calendar. What I did not arrange was Diane, because Daniel had called her in October and explained that November wasn't a good time. "Rachel needs quiet. I'll call every day, don't worry." He told me Sunday evening. I said thank you. I went to bed believing it was handled. Wednesday before surgery, Diane called me directly. 6:30 p.m., I was making dinner. She said she'd been thinking about the surgery, she was praying for me, and she'd been thinking about driving up, just to be there, just in case. "Daniel will be there," I said. "I have everything arranged, it isn't necessary." "Of course," she said. "I just thought..." You know Daniel isn't much of a cook? I've managed Daniel's cooking for 8 years, I said pleasantly. We'll be fine. She said goodbye with the specific warmth she deployed when withdrawing from a position she was not actually abandoning. I hung up and stood at the stove and thought, that was not the end of that conversation. That was the opening of a different one she is going to have with Daniel. Without me in it. I was right. Friday before surgery, Daniel came to find me in my home office and sat in the chair across from my desk. The one he used for difficult deliveries, because the desk between us functions, I have always thought, as a psychological buffer he finds useful. He said his mother was coming up while I was in the hospital, just to help. I looked at him carefully. I asked her not to. She's worried. Daniel, she called you after I said no, and you said yes. He had the grace to look genuinely uncomfortable. She's my mother. She wanted to help. She'll stay a few days. It'll be fine. I had made this argument before. Different words, same structure, same outcome. Daniel heard it, agreed, and then quietly failed to act because his mother was on the other side, and the path of least resistance had always run straight through her. I had watched this dynamic for 8 years, and I understood its architecture. I could see from the inside exactly how it was built and exactly where its load-bearing walls were. What I had not yet done was address the load-bearing walls directly. That was coming, but not that Friday. That Friday, I called my attorney, Sarah Ellison. She's coming, I said, against my explicit refusal. When did you refuse? Wednesday, on the phone, directly. And she called Daniel after. And Daniel said yes. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Start the folder tonight. Document everything from the moment you have eyes on it. Photographs, dates, texts, anything written. Don't confront before you're ready to move. Just observe and record. Call me when you're home and it's time. I started the folder that night. Hospital, 2 days. Surgery without complication. Dr. Kwan delivered her findings with the precision I had specifically chosen her for. Clean, complete, no unnecessary softening. On day 4, my friend Joanna texted a photo. She had driven past the house. Diane's silver Camry sat in my spot in the garage, which was its own small statement. Is she supposed to be there? I texted Daniel. 40 minutes later. She wanted to help. I told her okay temporarily. I thought about the word temporarily and what it meant to a woman whose month-to-month apartment was expiring. Then I pushed that thought aside because I didn't have the apartment information yet. I called my neighbor, Patricia Marsh. Patricia has been my neighbor for 5 years. She is the person I gave a spare key to, a decision I make carefully and have made for very few people. She is observant, organized, and does not ask unnecessary questions, the 3 qualities I most value in someone watching my house. She had already texted me twice. I called. She told me about the curtains. She told me about the living room shelves. My books stacked horizontally in the way of someone who sees books as objects rather than tools, while Diane's framed photographs of Daniel at various childhood ages occupied the shelves my books had been on. Carried in a tote bag on the first morning, apparently. Placed as though they'd always been there. She told me about the pantry, reorganized by category rather than frequency of use. The spice cabinet, alphabetized. My dish soap, eucalyptus and citrus, the one I'd chosen after trying several, replaced with a lavender brand I'd tried once and returned, now sitting on the counter while mine had been moved to the back of the cabinet under the sink. The guest room she described last, and it was the most clarifying thing she said. Open suitcases, not stored, neither fully unpacked nor put away, existing in the liminal state of someone who hasn't yet decided how long this is. 3 drawers of my guest dresser with Diane's clothes in them. Her reading lamp on the nightstand, brought from her apartment, the warm-toned bulb she preferred. A novel bookmarked a third of the way through. A candle from her apartment, the vanilla and something scent I associated with her living room. A dress and cardigan on my closet door hanger, hung with the ease of someone who had concluded the closet was available to her. How long is she planning to stay? Patricia asked. I don't know yet, I said. Photograph anything that changes, date everything, text it to this number. Okay, she said. No other questions. On day 6, Joanna forwarded me a text. She'd asked Daniel, by message, why Diane was there, and he had replied, Mom said Rachel asked her to come help with the recovery. He'd sent it without apparent awareness that Joanna would share it, which told me something about how thoroughly he had internalized his mother's version of events. Joanna's message to me, Is this true? Did you actually ask her? I photographed the screenshot and sent it to Sarah. Then I sat in the recovery suite and held the phone and thought, with great clarity, about what it meant that Diane had told my husband I had asked her to come. Not that there had been miscommunication. Not that she had inferred consent from something ambiguous I'd said. She had heard me say it wasn't necessary. She had said, of course. And then she had called my husband and told him the opposite of what I'd said, because she knew that was the version that produced the outcome she wanted. I called Sarah and told her about the text. She told him you asked, Sarah said. Yes, after I explicitly declined. That's not a misunderstanding, she said. That's a deliberate misrepresentation. Yes. Are you ready to be direct about this when you get home? Yes, Sunday morning, kitchen, all 3 of us. Good, she said. One more thing I've been looking into. Her current apartment, do you know if she's on a long-term lease? I didn't know. Sarah called back the next morning, month to month. Landlord had filed non-renewal in September, 2 months before my surgery. I sat with that for a long time. September. The tote bag with the childhood photographs on the first morning. The open suitcases. The dress on the closet door. The reading lamp from her own apartment, installed by my guest bed. The offer to stay as long as you need me. The candle. The bookmarked novel. She wasn't coming to help with my recovery, I said. No, Sarah said. She was testing whether there was room. That's my read. I thought about Diane at 64. No stable housing, son 4 hours away, daughter-in-law about to be immobile and dependent for 3 weeks, a window opening right in front of her while I was sedated 2 miles away. I thought about the word family on the succulent pot placed at the center of my shelf on the first day. I thought, she found the window. The window was real, but the frame was mine, and I had been building it since January. Sunday, I said. I'll be home Tuesday, 2 days to finish the folder, then Sunday morning. I'll be on call, Sarah said. I arrived Tuesday. The curtains, the living room, the kitchen, I've described them. The guest room. I want to describe one more time, because standing in its doorway was the moment everything became specific instead of general. The open suitcases, the dresser drawers with her clothes in them, the lamp from her apartment on my nightstand, the novel. I noticed the title, a thriller I recognized, third of the way through, a bookmark made from what appeared to be a grocery receipt. The candle on the dresser, its wax slightly melted from use. The dress and cardigan on my hanger, hung not hastily, but carefully, the way you hang something you intend to wear again in this room tomorrow and the day after. The room smelled like her apartment, specific and unmistakable, and I stood in my own guest room and felt briefly like a visitor in my own house, which was the clearest possible articulation of what was happening here. I photographed everything with the thoroughness I applied to document review. Then I went back to the kitchen, moved the table back to its correct position. I had the measurement in the small notebook in the drawer, had written it down the year we moved in, sat down and assembled the folder. 17 photographs by the end of the day. The legal pad timeline, dated and specific. The Joanna text. The saved voicemail. Sarah's notes from 4 calls. Diane came in and made tea and offered it, and I accepted. Nothing required me to decline tea. She talked about the curtains, the pantry, brightening things up for recovery. I listened. Said little. Asked how long she was planning to stay. As long as you need me, sweetheart. I wrote the phrase down after she left the room. Not because I needed it, because writing things down is how I process them, and because the phrase felt like the center of something. The hinge between the fiction she had built and the objective underneath it. As long as you need me. The most expansive possible definition of duration. The answer that contains no answer. The days between Tuesday and Sunday I want to describe precisely, because they were the days in which I understood the full shape of what I was dealing with. Diane was not cruel. I will say this clearly, and I will mean it, because it matters for understanding what this was. She was warm and present, and genuinely helpful in all the visible ways. She cooked every night, good food, Daniel's childhood recipes, the smells of his comfort. She fetched things before I asked. She was attentive to my recovery in the careful way of someone who has cared for people before and knows its rhythms. There was real love in the cooking, in the attentiveness, in the way she noticed when I was tired before I said so. She loved her son. That was never in question. I was not going to put it in question. What I was going to address was what she had done to get here, and what she had planned to do once she was. These were separate from whether she loved him. You can love someone and still lie to access them. You can mean well and still take things that aren't yours. Both things can be simultaneously true. Only one of them requires a response. I watched her across those days with the attention I had applied to 8 years of this relationship. And I watched Daniel with equal attention. The way he was different in her presence, slightly younger, slightly more accommodating. The ingrained reconfiguration that happened whenever she entered a room. She used a childhood nickname for him I'd never heard before, a shortened version of his name that belonged to a version of him that predated me. He used it back without noticing. I watched the older operating system activate underneath the current one, watched him answer questions about towels and dinners and his schedule in a tone that was fractionally more obliging than his usual register. And I thought, this is what she came for. Not just the house. This, the restoration of the version of him she knew before I existed. I did not begrudge her wanting it. I begrudged her method. On Thursday, we had one of those moments in the kitchen at 10. Just the two of us. Easy in the choreography of two people who've shared a kitchen for 8 years, reaching for coffee at the same time, moving without thought. For one moment, the house was fully mine, and the marriage was fully ours. Then Diane appeared in the doorway, asking about fresh towels, and the moment closed, and Daniel turned toward his mother, and the kitchen rebalanced around 3 people instead of 2. I thought, 2 more days. Friday. I told Daniel I wanted Sunday morning to be the 3 of us at the table. He nodded. He looked at me for a moment, the look of a man deciding how much he wants to know before something happens. He said, "She means well." I did not throw anything. Saturday, I reviewed the folder for the last time. 17 photographs. Legal pad timeline. Joanna text, printed. Voicemail saved. Sarah's notes. I went through it the way I went through a contract before a difficult meeting, looking for every weakness, every gap, every place the other side might find room to maneuver. I found 2 thin spots and addressed them. Then I put the folder under a cookbook on the kitchen counter, where it was accessible but not visible, and I went to bed. I slept 8 hours cleanly, the first full night since before the surgery. Sunday, I made coffee at 8. Found my mug, the tall gray one I used every morning, moved to the back of the cabinet behind 4 of Diane's mugs that had appeared from somewhere during the week, an act of displacement so small and so complete it had its own eloquence. I moved hers aside, brought mine to the front, used it, stood at my counter in my kitchen and thought, this is the last morning anything in this room is arranged by anyone other than me. I set 3 chairs at the table, placed the folder, poured 3 coffees, waited. Daniel at 8:20. He saw the folder, said nothing, sat. He had the expression of a man who has known something was coming and is relieved it's finally arriving so the waiting can stop being its own kind of cost. Diane at 8:40, dressed earlier than the morning required, as always, dressed in the way of a woman who considers her presentation a form of argument, who has never been caught in a state of unreadiness. She came down the stairs and looked at the 3 chairs and the folder on the table, and something moved across her face, something quick and complex, before the warmth arrived over it like a weather system settling into place. She sat across from me, Daniel to my left. "I want to talk about the visit," I said. "And what happens next?" "Of course, I'm so glad I could be here." "You replaced my curtains." A pause. The smile held. "The light, for recovery, I thought." "They were my curtains, in my house. You replaced them without asking." I placed the first photograph on the table. Living room, day 3, cream linen clearly visible, her car in the background through the glass. Then the second, the shelves, her photographs where my books had been. Third, pantry reorganized. Fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, the spice cabinet, my soap under the sink. The guest room, open suitcases, the dress on the closet door, the lamp, the candle, the bookmarked novel. All 17, placed one at a time in the silence of a kitchen where the only sound was photographs being set on a table. Diane looked at each one. The warmth held. Behind it, something worked through its options, searching for the frame, the angle, the way to receive documentation and turn it back into sentiment. "I was trying to help," she said. "I know," I said, and I meant it. "That's not what I'm addressing." I opened the legal pad. "On the Wednesday before my surgery, you called me and suggested coming. I told you it wasn't necessary. I told you Daniel would be there, and I had everything arranged." I did not touch my phone. The fact of the voicemail's existence was sufficient. She had been on the call. She knew what had been said. "You called Daniel after I said no." I placed the Joanna text, printed, in the center of the table. "This is what Daniel told our friend Joanna when she asked why you were here. He says you told him I had asked you to come. I want you to read it." She read it. I watched her read it. "I did not ask you to come. I asked you, specifically and directly, not to come, 48 hours before you arrived. And you told my husband I had." The kitchen was completely still. Henry moved in the yard. The refrigerator hummed its low note. Daniel's coffee sat untouched in front of him. "I wanted to be here for him," Diane said. "He was worried. I thought he had me," I said. 2 miles away, a recovery suite with a specific discharge date, everything arranged. He was not managing a crisis. He was managing a scheduled event that I had planned in detail. I paused. "You told my husband I had asked you to come. That is not a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding is when someone hears something differently than it was said. This is a specific, untrue thing you told him after hearing me say the opposite, in order to produce a specific result." She looked at Daniel. The reflex was 40 years old, reliable as weather, automatic as breathing. Transfer the scene to Daniel. Daniel would manage it. Daniel always had. He was the solution to every problem she had brought to him since Gerald left, and she was alone with a 12-year-old who didn't know yet how to refuse her. Daniel didn't look back. He was looking at the photographs, going through them one by one, the way he read things when he was actually reading them, rather than just seeing them. He picked up the one of the living room shelves. His childhood photographs in their silver frames, brought from her apartment in a tote bag, placed on my shelves on the first morning as though they had always been there. He held it for a moment. He set it down. He said, "When did you give notice on your apartment?" The silence that followed that question was the most specific silence of 8 years of marriage. The quality of something that has been true for a long time and has just been said aloud. The room rearranging itself around it. "September," Diane said quietly. Daniel looked at me. I had told him Saturday night. Sat at the edge of our bed after the dinner things were cleared and told him everything Sarah had found, because I respected him enough not to manage the information. because I wanted whatever he did on Sunday morning to be his and not mine. He had been very still when I told him. He had said she was going to stay. I had said, I think she wanted to see if there was room. He hadn't said anything after that. He had sat at the edge of the bed for a long time looking at the floor. But he had come down Sunday morning and sat in his chair, and that was its own kind of answer. He looked back at his mother. At 44 years old, with his childhood photographs on the table in front of him and her one-word answer still in the air, he looked at her with the expression of a man who has, finally, done a complete accounting on something he has been carrying in partial form for most of his adult life. Not angry. Something clearer than anger. Something that does not need to raise its voice. "You were going to stay," he said. She started to speak. "You gave notice in September. You drove up the day she went into surgery. You moved your lamp in, your photographs, your candle, your clothes in the dresser." He set the photograph down flat on the table. "You were going to stay, and you told me she asked you to come because that was the only way I would say yes." Diane said his name, the old nickname, the one from the house in Cincinnati, the one she had been using in my kitchen all week as though it could retrieve the version of him that existed before me, the version that had never yet found a reason to say no to her and hold it. He said, "I want you to leave by Wednesday." "Daniel, I'll help you find an apartment," he said, and his voice was level and not unkind, and that levelness was the most important thing about it. It meant he had decided something rather than reacted to something, and decisions hold where reactions don't. "First and last month, I'll cover it. We'll find something good. But you need to leave this house by Wednesday. This is Rachel's house. It's our house. You cannot do what you did and then stay in it." She looked at me. I held her gaze. I had nothing left to add. The folder was on the table. The 17 photographs were in a row. Daniel had done the thing, in his own voice, from his own understanding, without me directing or managing it. That was the version of this moment that mattered. Not what I had said, but what he had finally seen clearly enough to say himself. "Wednesday," I said, simply, to close it. Diane stood up and left the kitchen. I heard her on the stairs, more than one trip, the specific sound of someone who needs to move in order not to break. Daniel sat for a long moment looking at the photographs. Then he picked up his coffee, which had gone completely cold, and drank it anyway. The complete, matter-of-fact gesture of a man getting through what comes after a difficult thing. "Okay," he said. "Okay," I said. We sat together in the kitchen without talking, which is something we have always done well, and the silence was different from every other silence of the week. Less managed, more honest. The silence of two people who are on the same side of something and don't need to say so. She left Wednesday at 10. I was on a work call in my office, 2 weeks of delayed client matters needing attention, and I sat at my desk with the door closed and listened to the sounds of the house below me. Footsteps on the stairs, multiple trips, the particular thud and scrape of luggage. Daniel's voice, low and even. Diane's voice, lower. Then the front door pulled carefully shut, not slammed, not left open, but pulled with the specific care of someone trying to leave without leaving more of a mark than she already had. I recognized it as a kind of grace, and I acknowledged it privately. Daniel came upstairs at 10:20 and stood in my office doorway. He looked tired in the way he looked after conversations about his mother. A bone-level tiredness, old and specific. He said, "She's gone." I said, "Okay." He stood there a moment. I said, "Are you all right?" He said, "I don't know yet." I said, "That's fine." He nodded and went back downstairs. At noon I came down and put my curtains back, with a cane and a 3-week-old surgery, on the step stool from the hall closet, because it was my house and my curtains, and I was going to be the one to put them back. Not as a statement, not for Daniel to see, but because some things need to be done by the right person, and this was one of them. Patricia had found the gray panels folded in the hall closet, which told me something about Diane. She had folded them rather than discarding them, which was either guilt or the instinct of a woman who hadn't entirely decided, and I thought about this briefly and then decided it didn't matter. Daniel came in halfway through and finished the hanging while I directed from the floor, and when they were back in place, we both stepped back and stood side by side looking at them, and the room looked like our room again. Daniel said, "I miss those." I said, "I know." I moved the table back to the inch, brought my books back from the shelf, and spent an hour restoring my order, subject by subject, Daniel handing titles as I called them, neither of us talking much, the comfortable quiet of two people doing something domestic together. The spice cabinet I reorganized by frequency of use, smoked paprika and red pepper flakes and turmeric back in the front row where my hands went. I put my soap on the counter. I found the dark blue throw, the one from Portland, the one with the moth hole I'd been planning to mend for 9 years, folded on the armchair, and I put it back on the couch. By 3 o'clock, my house was mine. I stood in the middle of the living room with the gray curtains and the books in their order and the blue throw, and I felt the specific, clean satisfaction of a thing correctly restored. I hadn't known, until it was back, exactly how much had been taken. The displacement of my soap under the sink, the childhood photographs where my books should have been, the room that smelled like someone else's candle. Small things, every one of them. Small things, collectively, are not small. That evening, Daniel and I talked until after midnight. A real conversation. Both of us in our chairs, staying in them, saying things that had been living in the not-quite-said territory for too long. He said he'd known it was building. He said he'd always taken the path of minimum confrontation, because the alternative required looking clearly at something about himself and his mother that he had been avoiding since he was 12 years old, and Gerald left on a Wednesday. He said the apartment detail, September, 2 months before my surgery, hidden while she arranged herself into my guest room, had been the thing that made everything else impossible to soften. I kept telling myself she meant well, he said. She does mean well, but meaning well and doing right are not the same thing, and I've been using her intentions as an excuse not to hold her to what she actually does. Every time I did that, it cost you something. Yes, I said. It did. That changes, he said. Not as a promise to do better. I've made those. As a decision I've actually arrived at. There's a difference between those two things. I believed him, not because he said so. I had heard softer versions of this before, in smaller contexts, and they had faded because they were management rather than decision. I believed him because of Sunday morning, the question he had asked, the steadiness in his voice when he said Wednesday, the fact that he had not looked for an exit or a softener, or a way to make everyone comfortable simultaneously. That was not a man managing a situation. That was a man who had made up his mind. We made a list. His idea, which surprised me in the best way. Written, specific, signed by both of us. Visits by invitation only, arrival and departure dates confirmed by both of us before anything was booked. 5 days maximum. No unannounced arrivals under any circumstances. No changes to the house. No item moved, replaced, or added without explicit permission from both of us. Clear protocol. If something crosses a line, Daniel addresses it within 24 hours, not me. If he doesn't, I address it and he backs me publicly and without qualification. We wrote it out in my handwriting on legal pad paper, and we both signed the bottom, and I photographed it and texted it to myself. Daniel looked at me doing this and said, "You're going to keep that forever." I said, "Yes." He said, "Good." And I heard in that word not resignation but endorsement, which was different, and which I registered. We ordered Thai food, our usual order, so established neither of us opened the menu, and ate at the kitchen table in the right position, and Daniel fed Henry a piece of spring roll, which Henry accepted with the dignity of an animal who has always known this was coming to him. We talked about work, and a case that had been weighing on me, and a project Daniel had been not mentioning for 2 weeks because there had been other things to manage. We stayed up late talking about things that had nothing to do with any of this. Easy. Present. Our house. 14 months? Diane found an apartment in Cincinnati, 40 minutes closer to a friend from her teaching years. Daniel helped with the deposits and the logistics. I thought it was genuinely good, her own space, near someone who knew her from before any of this, and I said so to Daniel and meant it. Whatever she had done in November did not cancel the fact that she was 64, alone, without stable housing, with her emotional world organized around a son who lived 4 hours away. The loneliness underneath the overreach was real. The overreach still required a response. Both of these things were true simultaneously, and I had made my peace with holding them both. She has visited twice since then. Both times by invitation. Both times in a hotel a mile away, which she chose herself. A decision that showed more self-awareness than I had previously credited to her, and which I noted privately without saying anything. Arrival and departure dates established before tickets were bought. She brought food in containers, offered rather than installed. She did not move a single thing. She asked before she touched anything. The visits were careful on all sides. Not warm exactly. We are not warm. There is too much history in the specific location where warmth would need to grow. But civilized. Between civilized and what we had for 8 years is a distance I had not expected to cross, and I am grateful for it in a way that is quiet and real. Daniel holds the structure. I watch him hold it, the daily, mostly invisible decision to maintain a position rather than let it blur back into the old shape. Small corrections made without drama. His own voice, not mine behind it. He makes that decision. I notice it more than I say, probably more than I should let go unsaid, but that is its own work in progress. I think about Diane sometimes, not with residual anger. That surprised me when I noticed it was gone, like finding a room emptied of furniture you'd stopped seeing. What I think about is the grief of a thing that could have been different. She had a legitimate complaint. She was 64, alone, her housing was going, her son was 4 hours away, and there was a daughter-in-law who maintained careful limits she found constraining. Those limits were reasonable. She had not respected them. But they were also, from a certain angle, the shape of a life she hadn't chosen and didn't know how to live inside gracefully. The move through my window was her answer to an impossible set of circumstances. It was the wrong answer. It still needed a response. All of that can be true at once. What she could have done. Called Daniel and said, "I've lost my apartment. I don't know what to do." Called me and said, "I know this isn't my house, and I need to find something. Can we talk?" Those conversations were available to her. She chose instead to move through a window she found while I was sedated, believing that once she was installed, the fact of her presence would function as its own argument. She was not wrong that presence is an argument. She was wrong about the frame. I had been building the frame since January, since my mother taught me when I was 9 and bringing her some neighborhood injustice. What do you have? Not possessions, evidence. What can stand on its own? What doesn't require someone to take your word for it? I would tell her what I had. She would say, "Is it enough?" I would say I thought so. She would say, "Then you're ready." I had 17 photographs, a legal pad, a voicemail, a forwarded text, an attorney on call and a Sunday morning reserved, and a husband who, when the moment came, looked at everything on the table and asked the one question she couldn't reframe, and then said the one word that needed saying. Wednesday. My house smells like my soap. The curtains are mine. Dark gray, letting in exactly the amount of light I decided on 6 years ago and have not reconsidered. The books are in my order, subject by subject, accessible without unstacking. The table is where it belongs, to the inch. The dark blue throw is on the couch with the moth hole I have decisively concluded I will never mend, which is its own kind of peace. Henry is on the throw. He has been on it since day one. I stopped enforcing the rule somewhere in year 2. I am not starting again. Some things are small. Some small things are everything. The curtains are back. The soap is on the counter. The house is mine. I was ready before she arrived. I would be ready again.